Welcome, everybody. The 2022 season has officially finished. Well, officially, unofficially. The start day hasn't changed, but Super Bowl is now behind us. Will, commiserations. Your team did not come back with the Lombardi. How are you feeling?
I've already come to acceptance, mainly because the team played really well. I think both teams were amazing. It was an entertaining Super Bowl. So if it was one-sided and we lost, then I'd be a bit upset. If Kansas City Chiefs, if we were denied Patrick Mahomes at the half, it would feel like an unworthy victory. You know what I mean? Like, we got it easy with both teams, like the 49ers previously, and then obviously Kansas City both losing their guy. I've come to accept it. I do have a lot of things I want to get off my chest, but we'll sort of get into that as well. But it was a really good Super Bowl. No doubt both teams that were there will be around orbit around that final in the future as well, because I think they're built to last. So I'm accepting it now. I'm calm.
Did you know a stat about, I think it was the last, I think it's between 7 and 10 quarterbacks who lost their first Super Bowl, never made it back to the game.
Yeah, no, it's real. I thought that about Joe Burrow, not because of Joe Burrow, but because it was so hard to get back, but he was back there again. And it shows that if you're a special player, you've got pieces around you, there's always a chance. It's a marriage between the team, the organization, and the players and the coaches. If they're heading in the right course, then there's always a chance. But occasionally you get certain players that can supersede all of that with their talent alone. I think Jalen Hurts is great, but I think it was more of like an organizational, coaches, everything culminating in that. And it's a cultural movement, which is why I think it's something that we can recreate to some degree, whereas the Bengals, for example, it's all Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? So I hope we get back there again. It may be a long time. Like, even Tom Brady went, was it nearly 8 years without sniffing another Super Bowl? 10 years. So you might get off to a hot start, but there could be a long drought, and then you get stuff towards the end. So I think Jalen Hurts' style of play isn't built for that. But we shall see. I hope we get back, and I think we can get within punching distance next year, but you never know. Look at the Rams. People might forget how to play football altogether. We don't know.
I think West Assured the Eagles are built quite to sustain more than the Rams was. The Rams was like a one-shot deal. Yeah, and I think they were aware of it that could happen. So so that's that. It was a great game. That's my take on both sides of the ball. I mean, both teams played relatively well. And when we talk about the next topic, I'll let you know like my thoughts. But should we just talk about the call, what happened with it and stuff?
Just 1 second. Will, can you just check the message I've just sent you? Because I've got a bit of a frame dropping problem right now. Can we just have a little health check on the stream?
No.
Because it is all over the place on my screen right now.
It's fine on my screen.
Okay, we're going to continue on. Perfect segue, Peter.
So here's the thing about the call, right? I think in all honesty, from a neutral perspective, right, it was an egregious call. But then at the same time, you got to think about, say, if it was the Chiefs, it was the other side, or it happened to the other team, their fans will be complaining as well, same as Eagles fans are complaining about the call that the referee made. It was the softest of PIs to be called.
It's not
And
a
I
PI,
read
but it's not a
something-
PI though, is it? And welcome in
No, no.
Lynchworm as well.
Lynn,
Yeah,
what's
I
up?
mean-
How's it going? Welcome to the
I
stream, man.
mean, one of the things that Kurt Warner said was people like to talk about, oh, in that moment you can't make that call, but in any of the 256 regular season games, if that was happening, that was called, there wouldn't be as much of an issue sometimes. But let me finish 1 second. But the thing is, when you look at when you look at the call and everything that happens, for me at the end of the game, I don't know if Bradley was telling the truth or he was trying to be honest, but he said, I did tag him, so I hold responsibility for what happened. I mean, it's soft, but I kind of still grabbed him at the end of the day. So hey, if the person that it happened with is kind of like owning up a little bit, then
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, Diddy,
All right. I'm busting out. Sorry, I'm gonna cut in.
go.
Right. So, holding a pull of a shirt doesn't automatically equal a hold, correct?
No,
True.
if you get caught.
No. I mean, by the letter of the law, a pull of a shirt, by the way they've interpreted it now, is you've got to actually impede the receiver.
Yeah.
Or, right?
Okay.
You've got to make some form of impeding. So in the first half, there was a clear hold on Juju. His hip got turned and it ended a drive
Yep.
because it was on a third down. And they should have called that. It was borderline between PI and holding, but it was egregious. It should have been called. They got that
We're
wrong.
making up for it.
In the second half, and they did not call it, but the way that they had called that game, up until that point, they'd let them play. They'd let them be physical with each other. Correct?
Yep.
You cannot, and what did I say on Saturday? You cannot change how you officiate the game just because it gets down to the crunch time. And what did they do? They changed how they officiated the game
Yep.
because it got to crunch time.
Yep. You've
Was
gotta-
the receiver impeded? No. Was his shirt slightly pulled? Yes.
But it didn't have an effect. Like,
Was
okay,
it?
here's the thing.
Did it slow him down? No. So therefore, it is an immaterial tug. He's
My
not done
homeboy
anything to him.
Throwing the ball to him anyway.
He sailed the ball because he knew he had nothing going on.
I was watching whatchamacallit on ESPN radio, Kayshawn, J. Will and Max, and Kayshawn basically kind of did like a little sneak diss on Juju. He said Juju isn't fast out of his breaks. Okay, when he chops his feet and comes out, he's not Tyreek in that he explodes out of his breaks lightning fast. So to the untrained eye, it might look like he's being slowed down, but that is Juju out of his breaks. You know, cornerbacks every play, the majority of them are taught this technique. They keep a hand on the receiver. I'm not saying they're grabbing, but they have a hand on him just so they can feel him out. So if they're looking back towards the quarterback,
And you can
they have
kind
a
of
sense
close that
where
space away, so therefore he can't disappear beyond you.
exactly. And here's the thing: usually, if it's like a blatant hold, what do you see? You see that jersey stretch. That's why all these jerseys.
But it's not
now
even.
are
But
like
it's the
elastic.
but the jersey stretches, and normally you'll see the hips turn.
You'll see the hips turn. You'll see some kind of force being exerted. I didn't see that. So for me, it was a case of I didn't see the impediment. I understand the hand movement. I understand how it can get called like that. But if you look at where the ball was thrown, he wasn't going to get to that ball anyway.
But
Now, a
unfortunately,
hold is different from a PI.
yeah,
Like,
this is a hold.
they
So
won't
therefore,
call it PI,
before the
yeah.
ball is thrown, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what happens afterwards.
But the big issue is, and I think forgetting about the whole penalty or everything, what people don't like is that this decided the game. You know, it's not a case of it's a penalty.
No,
can work their way out. It's like,
it put a
flag,
bullet point
game's
in the
over.
game, correct? It put a
Yeah.
bullet point. It's like the game's done now.
As
We've
soon as that was called,
neutralised
it's
the
like
rest.
the game's over. It's done. They don't even need to play. The game's over.
Everybody don't even need to play.
All they
Like,
need to do is kick the
barring
ball
a
through the
miracle.
field. They could have kneeled down from that spot.
Barring a miracle.
Yeah, but like, hey,
It was
we've seen
decided.
this happen. Why if the kicker slips
Yeah,
and
but
don't
it-
make the field goal?
It
I
shouldn't
know.
come down to that.
I may have said
We already saw a dog
to myself,
that game anyway.
I was like,
You hope he
please slip.
slips.
I said, please slip, because I just wanted more of the game. It was a great game.
Yeah.
Like he
And
could have
what
slipped
do-
and not make the kick.
Like,
Yeah.
what did we? We're going to talk about slips a little bit later on, but what did we all talk about? What is the one thing we did not want the refs
Yep.
to be the
To
discussion?
decide the game.
To
Yeah.
dictate
They do,
this
no,
game,
we didn't
yeah.
want them to be even part of the discussion. The refs were part of the discussion on more than one occasion.
Yep.
I remember seeing, I think it was at
Okay,
Field
so-
Yates, and he said, "This game is too good to descend into what is a catch."
Oh,
That is true. But here's the thing, though. Do you think going forward, in team sports, right? Are we gonna head to the point whereby some of these calls has to be decided by, let's say, an AI? Because there's far too many human errors that's happening in the biggest moments of big games now. In the NFL's happened over the weekend, it happened in the Premiership. So are we moving towards an area whereby do you get the AI?
I don't
I
think
think
get it
this
wrong.
I
sport
think-
can be from an AI perspective, but
I think-
Like if you suspect a possible hold, like should the NFL try and find the technology? Like, you know how VAR and all of it rules the Premiership, right? But at the World Cup, the VAR was actually very good at the World Cup that they recently played because they got most of the decisions correct.
you can only do it
Right.
with offside.
yeah. I'd probably say like
Yeah,
the hard
but in the
part of all of
NFL,
this-
could you implement something like that? If there's a possible hold, could there be a check with that?
No,
I think
there,
it
there,
needs to
there are things
start-
that you can do it with. Sorry,
It needs to-
sorry to cut you off. Well,
it needs to start with the refs taking accountability and being able to pick that flag back up after reviewing the play. It almost seems as though once they've thrown down the flag, they're just going to stick to it. You know, what I actually, at work, I was going insane because there's some guys at work that are into football and I was talking about other possibilities. What if they threw a flag on the other side, like a hold on the other side of the field, and that decides the play? Imagine, you know,
somebody who's
If
not
it's an- if it's an
somebody who's
egregious- if it's an
running a
egregious
route
hold.
that's never like is like the fourth read or something like that.
yeah, and that decides the Super Bowl. It's the other side of the field. The QB's back is to that receiver. That decides the Super Bowl. You know, what needs to happen is it's okay for the refs to pick up that flag, and we've seen it happen before. You know, where they've made mistakes and they've said, "Put 5 minutes back on the clock. There are no penalties on this play. Repeat."
Yeah,
the
but
down."
but what you to understand
or-
in the context of that moment, right?
Yeah.
Whoever threw that flag, he wasn't backing. I was telling the referee that it's a hold. I'm sorry. And as a ref, you gotta agree with the people you're working with.
Yeah,
Or
you can't be
do we
like-
have
yeah.
or do we have special rules for the Super Bowl? And
that's
I don't know,
not fun.
special rules for the Super Bowl where the last 2 minutes everything is reviewable by New York. Get it right.
That okay, so that I agree with, whereby New York has to review everything and get it right. I agree with
Because
that.
it's the last 2 minutes.
Exactly. So basically, in that moment, that hold would have to be reviewed by New York, and I think it's gonna be a topic for the.
Oh, and
you know, when
is
it goes to
it
the
but
off-season,
is
they
it
review the
consistent with
rules.
how they've refereed the rest of the game? Not based upon what are the laws. Is it if you've got to you set a precedent for the entire game, right?
Yeah.
Each
Yeah,
game
but-
sets a
but-
precedent.
Yeah, but that's true though. But here's the thing though, New York can only go by the rules. They can't go by how the ref is refereeing the game. Because again, New York go stick with the rules. Because if you're going how the ref is refereeing
But it's an
the game,
interpretation.
it
That's
could
the
be-
thing.
Yeah, but it could be biasness. Okay, so what if from this game we know the referee is clearly refereeing a certain way that's against a certain team, and it happens in the NFL. There's certain games whereby you feel like the ref is against your team, right? Let's say the Super Bowl is happening and some a crucial moment comes. New York gotta go with the law, because if they don't go with the law, it could cost your team the Super Bowl.
Yep. No, that's
But
true.
when that's where it seems like there's a difference in how a VAR system works across different sports, right?
Mhm.
We've seen it in football where they all sing from the same hymn sheet, right?
Mhm.
generally, you see them sing from the same hymn sheet, for better or for worse.
Yep.
The NFL, because they don't have subjective calls in the reviewable system, it's either did it happen, yay or nay. It's clear cut, you'd think. And then in rugby, it's a discussion. So the discussion is between the video referee and the main referee, and it says, I see it as this, and the referee goes, I'm going to issue this based upon this and this. Or he'll say, and sometimes they disagree, and the video referee will say, this is my recommendation, and the referee says, no, this is how I'm going to be doing it, but yada yada yada. And then, but they know the reasoning behind it. Yeah. Unfortunately, with the NFL, it goes into a black box. Yeah. You don't hear anything. You just hear the end result.
Yeah.
You can't go into a black box.
If people were to hear the reasoning, then perhaps some people would sort of understand a lot more.
You need to hear the conversation
between the PI and a hold. A lot of people are just looking at both as the same penalty. So I think they need that clarity there, and they shouldn't be afraid to implement it. I know they're thinking it will slow down the game, but a lot of this stuff, I mean, it's only really going to happen in the plays that are critical and aren't necessarily obvious.
But we've seen it with the Sky Ref in the XFL.
Yep.
They made that process transparent, and what is it better for the fans, because they know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Then we don't descend into what is a catch hell.
Oh my goodness. I'm still trying to ask that question. For me personally, I was sat down, my missus was right next to me. I literally stood up and started like flailing my fists and going like, oh, it's stupid. And then she was looking at me like, what?
Okay, I'm gonna give my 2 cents on that catch, on the Devontae, first on the Devontae Smith catch.
Yep.
He got 2 feet inbounds.
Yep.
He got a third foot. He had a third foot. He's going forwards. He's being tackled now. He's made the football move because he's got that third foot, right? He's already going down the field. Yep. He has possession.
Yep.
He gets tackled to the ground and the ball, even if the ball comes out, what is that? That is now a fumble afterwards, after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes out. Never came out.
Never came out.
So, what is it? It's a catch. And that is it.
Yep.
With Dallas Goedert, it was clearly a catch because his foot was still on the ground when he'd finally finished juggling the ball. The first foot was still down on the ground. That's a catch.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Sanders, where they initially ruled it as a fumble and a return for 6, he had 2 feet down, basically had turned, and in the middle of that turn got nailed. But he hadn't got that third foot. He didn't move forwards. It's bang bang play. It's an incompletion. He has not made the football. The football move and the time element that they talk about. That hadn't happened. So that was a correct call. They didn't get everything wrong in this game via review.
Yeah.
They just got basically 2 things wrong.
I'm just finding them opening up a new repertoire. I'm not saying a new description. I'm saying they're kind of like not necessarily moving the goalpost slightly, but the way I interpreted that play for me was he caught the ball 2 feet, left foot and right foot with time to spare. He still has the ball. He starts getting tackled. He's going down, still has the ball tucked. His knee and elbow touch the ground, out of bounds, still has the ball tucked. He goes onto his side. That's when we start.
Once the knee hits down, out of bounds, he's off the field.
Out of bounds, he was already off the field anyway. So he's out of bounds. He still has the ball. Now, what happens is the ball does not hit the ground by falling out of his lap. No, he's still holding the ball. All right. It makes contact with the ground. But of course, if you have the ball in your chest.
Isn't one knee 2 feet down, as well?
The ball, the ball's going to be hitting the ground too. But guess what? He still has possession while he's sliding with the defender trying to rip his arms away. he's still holding the ball. And apparently he lost control. At no point did I see that ball wobble and leave his body and then him bring it back in. It did touch the ground, but the ground didn't help assist him in the catch. You know, he didn't lose possession. So my issue is, at what point does this play actually end? Because he was already out of bounds and sliding towards the bench. So I'm there like, so if I'm a player, I score a touchdown, I fall forward, I slide towards the bench, I hit the bench, the ball gets popped out of my hands. Is that an incomplete pass? Is that not a touchdown?
No, because technically, by the letter of the law, once you touch somebody who's not part of the play, so say for example it's a photographer or whatever it is, that's an out off the field. That's like a foreign object. That's considered like a foreign object.
Yeah. If this happened inbounds, so for example, if he caught the ball 2 feet and he was inbounds, went down on the elbow and the ball started to move, I could understand why they try and argue it. But he was out of bounds.
Yeah, but if that's only if it goes down off his own accord.
Yeah.
If you're getting tackled if you get tackled down to the ground, that's a tackle.
Exactly. So I was kind of dumbfounded, and the worst part was, I mean, if they'd stuck to their guns, they called it that. I don't see how it was irrefutable that he didn't have possession. It was not clear. So this is not
what happened in that drive. Did you get was it a field goal on that drive?
Yes. No, Jalen Hurts ran in 2 touchdowns. That wasn't one of them. Miles Sanders, I think that was the one. Miles Sanders went right up the gut from out wide. Happened towards the tail end of the second.
Miles Sanders didn't rush in a touchdown, did he?
Did he?
No, I don't think he did.
Gainwell?
Yeah, Gainwell.
It was either Miles Sanders or Gainwell, but he went right up the gut. Cut through them like a knife.
No. Gainwell didn't get it. Was all the touchdowns were 3 touchdowns rushing for Jalen and one pass to AJ Brown. That was it. So those were the 4.
Okay, so for me, I just want them to clear it up because both teams are going back and forth. So the Kansas City Chiefs were walking back onto the field because they're like, oh no, it's our ball. And then they're like, hold on, wait.
Everyone thought it was a catch.
Everyone thought it was a catch. And then everyone was saying, let's get off the field.
And there wasn't irrefutable evidence to overturn. So therefore, you stick with the on-field call.
Yeah. Stop. Even with Dez Bryant, the legend of him against Green Bay, Dez caught it. Guess what? And all of that happened in bounds. All right. So the ball came. He didn't catch it, but that all happened in bounds. So.
Oh yeah, it happened in bounds, but Dez didn't catch it. That's what
I'm saying. For example, but this, he had possession. He was already out of bounds, and the thing that happened outside of the field, out of bounds, that's what decides the play. So I was confused with that, and I think they need to be more clear on that. Like, hey, if you fumble
they
this
need
ball
to sort it
out of bounds, you can
100%. Okay, all right. Moving on. Now, not talking about the referees, not talking about any scandal for once. Okay, we're going to make some hot takes. Did the Kansas City Chiefs win the game? Or did the Eagles choke and lose it?
Well, really choke is a bit of a strong word, but okay, I would say...
But when you're up 10... looking comfortable at half time, you've got a supposedly hobbling quarterback on the other side, and you don't make a single stop for the rest of the game.
Okay, so here's the thing. It's not a choke job in the sense that the team that you're playing are essentially one of the best teams in the AFC. Yeah, I get it. And it's not a choke job because the Chiefs have done it before. I mean, when they won their first Super Bowl, Mahomes, every single playoff game up to the Super Bowl, they came back from behind 10 points or more than that. When they played Houston in that same year, 24-0 by the second quarter, they came back from that to beat them. So now that is a choke job by Houston because you're up 24 points. Correct. Now 10 points, we all know 10 points is nothing.
It's not a lot of a lead. We talked about it the other day. 10 points is not a lot of a lead.
The Falcons when you're 28-3, now that's a choke job because
Do you know
you have
what? There were.
25
Do you know
points.
what the funny thing was? So it was 24-14 at halftime, right?
Yeah. So for me, the way when I look at it, I think it's more like the Eagles lost it. The reason why I say that is because coming out of halftime, especially defensively, there was not adjustments made by the Eagles. Because in the first half, they should have made an adjustment. The Chiefs were running a lot of motion, and their motion plays were being successful. So you had a lot of time.
But the one thing
to-
I'm going to say is, what was the coverage on defense? Those touchdowns
tried-
were
Listen. I get it, but what I'm
egregious.
saying, but most of them were like, listen.
Peter,
all
you
the
would have
Chiefs
scored a
touchdowns-
touchdown on this weekend, like if you had run that route.
Kadarius Toney, don't even get me started on that.
But the point I'm making is that when you watch the game, it was off motion. The Eagles didn't adjust because what the Chiefs was doing was we're gonna tell what coverage or what defense you're in by running the motion. And if they do that and you shift, then no, okay, you're in this formation. We're gonna do this and we're gonna get a touchdown. And also the Eagles special teams also let them down a little bit.
Oh
That
yeah, with
return,
the
like,
punt
come on,
coverage.
it's a Super Bowl, man. You can't let someone take it all the way to the 5. Like, come on, it's a Super Bowl.
Right, so
Yeah, no, that was not cool.
So I'll say
the
the Eagles
the
lost
Sky
it
Moore
because,
touchdown. You know the Sky Moore touchdown.
Yep.
yeah,
It was almost identical to the Tony one, but just with it was flipped.
Yep.
The motion was almost identical. And,
exactly. So,
and the defensive backs got fooled. They didn't recognize it. The secondary didn't recognize it at all,
Yeah.
and they fell
But that's-
hook, line and sinker for it twice in one game.
That's the signs of like a really good signal caller in that they work, they see the tendencies and they see people biting on certain, because when it's at this level, we saw a few false starts on the defensive line. Kansas City Chiefs, but that's because they wanted that extra start. So what was happening is the DBs were biting because they were like, damn, we're getting burned here a little bit. So they bit on any sort of motion. Andy Reid picked up on that and he was like, all right, we're going to go back to that later on because we know we can manipulate them. We know we can fool, not necessarily fool their eyes, but sort of get them to overcommit to something. And they were able to sort of capitalize on that.
So what I will say is, I saw some stats that in the middle of the field, the Eagles' defense in the passing game is particularly poor. They allow a much higher completion percentage than anything out wide.
Yep.
that's true.
And
I think-
what
think
did
Kobe Bean out
Mahomes
there.
do? He just honed in on the middle of the field.
Yep.
he did? But what
Receivers,
what I find-
tight ends, running backs, everything was going through the middle of the field.
Yeah, listen, if you go a soft zone and Andy Reid finds it, he's gonna keep hammering it. That and the way they scored the touchdowns, Andy Reid found what the defense will buy on, and he kept hammering it. And the key point is the lack of adjustments for me. Like
From a defensive standpoint, from Gannon's defense.
Yes, and also, well, the field might have something to do with it. When we go
We're gonna
into
talk about that
into
next.
our next segment, but Eagles pass rush disappointed a bit for me. I expected much more pressure in this game versus the Chiefs' offensive line.
Well,
Now,
what was your bold prediction?
Now, in that context, I said, but had the Eagles pass rush been very effective, they probably would have won this game because they wouldn't have given the Mahomes any time on the day. But in that same context, I'm saying that the Eagles pass rush didn't show up. I got to praise the Chiefs O-line because they're the real MVPs for this game for me because they kept Mahomes clean, even the fact that he didn't.
To be honest, they've been
He was hobbled.
apparently they've been the best pass
mean-
protectors all season.
And there's no doubt about it because they've kept relatively clean. And I think the Eagles they're good at pass protection. The Eagles are I would say still rank the Eagles' offensive line number one because they do both. But in terms of pure pass protection, probably the Chiefs because they pass the ball a lot, and that's what the offensive lineman will be extremely skilled at. Whereas the Eagles' O line is the best when it comes to running the football.
Correct.
So in that aspect of things, shout out to Creed Humphrey and his guys on the O line because they did an incredible job of keeping Mahomes clean.
From a defensive standpoint, the Chiefs, they managed to get a little bit of pressure. Not sack pressure, but they managed to get Jalen to roll to his left. Chris Jones had this great lane discipline in pushing him that way, pushing him to his right. So then he couldn't throw easily because he had to reset his feet, obviously.
Absolutely, and also when you think about it, the thing is, when you think about it, the Chiefs all line were very good in pass protection. Eagles very good at running the football, and also it's just that yes, and the Chiefs defense was slightly better on the day in terms of the touchdown that they scored in the first half. That played a huge part of the score by the end of the game because they managed to steal. You count that as a turnover for the other team, and in games that are close like that, sometimes turnovers also makes a huge difference, regardless of the call at the end. But that was also part
I don't think the Eagles ran the ball well outside of Hurts.
Yeah, no, that is true.
They took a lot of time off the clock with long drives, but you look at Kenneth. So Gainwell looked the better rusher on the day, right?
Yeah.
Miles Sanders looked pretty poor in this game. Miles Sanders was 7 for 16. Kenneth Gainwell was 7 for 21, which is not good at all.
But his run plays were
and he had a 9-yard rush on one of them, so the other 6 went for 12.
Yep. It's true. Jalen Hurts was able to get like a lot of work on the ground. Like I said, this game was close, but I kind of feel like my Eagles defense came out flat in the second half. They didn't. The cover 2 shell, which I think they took the blueprint from what Todd Bowles did.
It only works if you get pressure.
It didn't work out the same. Yeah,
it only works if you get pressure.
They didn't, and we got torched in the back. I'm not talking downfield, but everything underneath was just easy money for them.
Yeah.
And you can't put this on Jalen Hurts because he played a hell of a game. I think 88% completion, 304 yards, 1 TD. Like Mahomes only beats
his only aberration. Got to talk about it. The fumble.
Yeah.
Yep. For Hurts,
I think that
basic. If you take away the penalty and everything, that effectively lost them the game.
Yeah,
on the grand scheme of things, because effectively, and the reason why I say this was, you were at the time, you 10 points in the lead at the time, correct?
Yeah,
10 points in the lead. Yeah, you were driving the ball nicely because you're near midfield. That was the opportunity to make the lead 17 points.
Yeah.
From a psychological standpoint, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
More than 2 scores.
In that half, I realized I'd only seen Patrick Mahomes on the sideline, sat down.
Correct.
Like I didn't see him on the field. I think they may have maybe 1 possession. And that was it.
2 possessions, but I think it's because of the long drives.
Yeah, it was a long drive. So we were doing really good. And you know what that turnover did? A turnover can happen, but defense scored on it. Patrick Mahomes is putting up his hands like, wow, we scored a point. I'm not even on the field. Guess what? That time of possession, we basically gained a 3 touchdown. So that's as if I was on the field and we scored. Great.
Time of possession becomes less relevant if they score a touchdown.
Exactly.
With no time, with 0 time.
If he'd fumbled the ball, they got it back. They'd still have to work their way through the field, but that was an easy scoop and score. And that was, I think, the game changer you know, a lot of people say the flag, but I'm working with stuff that's on the field that's actually
That's within your own
happened,
control.
that's within their control. So when that happened, I mean, Jalen Hurts redeemed himself multiple times in that game, but I do look back on that moment and say, damn, it wasn't like it was like a insane forced fumble. He just lost the ball.
He
You know
just
what I mean? He
transferred it incorrectly between one hand
transferred
and
it
the other.
incorrectly and lost it. If it had been punched out, if he'd been hit so hard it came out, everyone's like, fair play. The guy made a play, but this was just
A
how can I
gaff.
say,
It was a proper complete
gaff.
and utter gaff. Yeah.
and it's a gaff that potentially is the main reason why they fell behind on points. It was the largest score. I mean, field goals are field goals, but this is 6 points, 7 if you kick the extra. So for me, I mean, that was a huge play, and it happened right as we are about to end the first half, and it evens out the momentum. We had all the momentum, we had the pressure, and if you look at our offensive line, the way we were converting on fourth down, everyone was saying you've got to look at their third down like it's second down.
So no, actually,
because
this
we were
was so that happened at
unstoppable moving that ball.
14-7. So that would have been a 14-point lead. So it's 2 touchdown lead, but still makes a significant difference.
Yeah,
You
Well,
go,
it does. It would have made
and that's pre-adjustments.
yeah, a tremendous amount of difference. And I think also another factor is the fact that when you play the cover 2 show, your front four, they've got to get home, and at the minimum, even if they can't get home with a pass rush,
pressure.
they've got to be able to stop the run game because you're playing cover 2. So effectively, your four got to be able to be stout against the run. And I think your Chiefs D line was a little bit not great against the run in this game, because I mean the Eagles, because the Chiefs they had success running the football for the amount of times that they try running the football. I mean, Pacheco had 15 for 76, 5 from 1.
I think
average
Pacheco
yards per
played
carry.
very well in this game.
He played extremely
He
well.
does. I mean, what's his name? Brett Coleman had a tweet, and I was like, shout out to Brett Coleman. That tweet was so about how Isaiah Pacheco plays football. He says that he plays football like his family has been held hostage, and he's been told that he's got to get 5 yards every run, otherwise they're not going to get released. And that's how he plays football.
I
Like,
don't know. It's
I
true.
want every yard.
I can vouch for that. Like his running style, he's a wide base runner. He kind of reminds me like of a Marshawn Lynch, but a faster twitch. He is aggressive. You know those guys that stomp their feet while they're running.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
Pacheco's
Pacheco. He's stomping his feet as he works his way downfield, and he's accelerating. So he's got speed. You know, some will say he's a bit undersized, but he runs with a lot of power. I've seen him run clean through strong safeties and linebackers.
He does. He runs so aggressively. Arm tackles is not going to work. If you're a linebacker and you come up against Isaiah Pacheco, you have to have your thick base, square your shoulders, and he's coming. He's coming to hit. So you got to be ready, and you got to take him down with full force, because you can't go with arm tackles and other kinds of stuff against Isaiah Pacheco. Now, when I think about him, I'm like, he's playing in a good team. He just won the Super Bowl. But I would love to have him in a run-based offense and see what he can do over the whole season. Because I know even for him to get 1,000 yards for the Chiefs, it would be a miracle. Because Andy really loved to pass the football.
Yeah.
Well, when he's got a future Hall of Famer behind center, you're gonna pass the ball a lot.
Yeah.
No, I get that, but think about it.
Because don't forget, he's not a game manager. He's not a game managing quarterback. He is.
I know, but if Peyton Manning was able to get that couple of 1,000-yard rushes, even with how amazing he was at throwing the football, he could still do it for Pacheco, man.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to move on to the Sod Father.
Hey, I've got to put a disclaimer here. Okay. My first disclaimer is this. You guys need to understand something. That field was not done by the Arizona Cardinals.
Correct.
It was the NFL that took charge
They
of it.
spent
Nobody should blame my team.
$800,000. They spent $800,000 on this field, right?
It's embarrassing.
And rumor has it, this is not actual truth, that that field used was also the same field that caused Steven Gerrard to slip all those years ago. I thought Peter would
Leave
enjoy
him
that one.
alone, man. Leave him alone.
Now-
they want to do it.
Right,
So they're
okay.
happy now.
All right. Now, back in the early days, we had a fellow Colts fan, Rob, come on the podcast, and now Rob, up until recently, was a greenkeeper, but he had done some other, like football and rugby fields as well. Now, I asked him, in his professional opinion, how did they mess up that field? Right? What can cause slipping like that to occur? Now, slipping like that can occur. So, it's real grass. They wheel it out in the sun to dry after irrigation, so after they water it. So that either the soil was too wet or it was too dry. Now, it wasn't too dry. We know that. But that would make that, and there's fine margins between that, because that would make the field cut up more, right? But the field wasn't cutting up, was it? It wasn't like they were taking lumps out of the field.
No.
Yep.
It was like,
It's true.
it was just, and so what I said was, so I mentioned to him that AJ Hawk mentioned that, well, they mentioned on Pat McAfee's show that they changed to 3/4 inch studs. And he says they only use those studs when it's a mud bowl. Those are like, proper, they're
They're
proper
meant to
deep.
get the teeth in. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
they're
clamps.
they're like rugby, like proper, and he said, so the way he said was, it sounds like a case of they're watering it too much, or because it's in the desert, there's dew. It could be a situation where there's like there's too much moisture on the surface, so they're just basically aquaplaning on it effectively.
Yeah, I mean,
because everyone
you
was
can have
slipping.
bad turf. You can have bad turf, but it's messing up potentially good plays. Pacheco, I saw him slip, and he was hitting a hole. He was ready to go, and I know he was frustrated because his foot, he planted, and you saw his foot, and forget not just messing up the play, but you're risking injury. I saw Miles Sanders as well.
But do you know an example, right? I've got another example. So, Eagles fan and owner, co-owner of the Wrexham Football Club.
Oh, yeah.
Right, Rob McElhenney.
Yeah.
What did they have to do a couple of years ago? They had relayed their turf, and everybody was slipping. It was getting to, it was pre-season, and they were slipping, and they're like, this is a safety problem. Somebody's going to do an injury. So they tore the entire field up, had fixtures rearranged, so they played away from home instead of being at home, and they relayed the thing. Because it wasn't safe.
Yep. Absolutely.
And they were lucky that nobody got injured yesterday because of somebody slipping.
Yeah, because players can slip, but when you start seeing 1, 2, 3
in the same play,
in the same place, so they're trying to do a cutback and their foot's gone. Like, what's going on here?
I saw one where Hassan Reddick slips, and he gets pancaked as well at the same time. Pat Mahomes slips. An offensive lineman slips in front of him, and I was like, are they all Bambi on ice or something?
Yeah.
No,
Gainwell and
it was bad.
Also slipped. And when
it was bad because Reddick said that he changed his cleats at half time.
It didn't make a difference.
It didn't work. Like it didn't make a huge difference and I think Boldy was talking about how the Chiefs right tackle played a very good game, and Reddick was sort of responded to the tweet and was like, I know in this video you're trying to show me out, but you need to understand that the field was terrible. So you couldn't really pass rush.
He had no traction.
Yeah,
exactly. So you couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
So
have we realised no outside rusher did anything in this game? It was only inside guys.
You can't get a speed.
It was only inside guys.
Get the edge. The outside guys explode. They need to generate that play. They need to push off the ground. When the ground's moving underneath you, how are you meant to generate force to beat these potentially
I know
all
for
pro
a fact.
tackles. Like it's not gonna happen.
I know for a fact your Eagles edge rushers were very, very upset in this game. Like,
Yeah,
they couldn't do their thing.
the frustration was there. You know, of course, the offensive linemen
Well,
are loving
also, it didn't
because
help that
they can
Mahomes was
just
getting the
plant.
ball out like that as well most of the time. The ball was out of their
Yeah.
hands before they could even get there.
Yeah,
No, but we all talk about pressure. That's the thing.
Correct.
Eventually,
It should
you
get
gonna
home.
get first step.
yeah. Frank Clark and those guys, they weren't necessarily sacking Hurts, but they
Josh
were
Sweat
right
got some
there.
pressure.
Hurts was getting the ball out, and we're talking the guy was tackling him to the ground while it happened. You know, so that's the kind of pressure you need.
So-
It doesn't need to be a sack, but as long as you're in that guy's face. I remember there was one player, I think, was it Clark? He chased him from one side of the field all the way out of bounds. He had to throw the ball at the sideline. Now that's pressure.
Right,
Frank
so-
Clark was exhausted about that.
But
What I will say, so
that
just so,
player has held the ball a little bit too long.
yeah, he did.
Yeah,
Josh Sweat did manage to get pressure. All it took was him to be offside by about half a second.
no. Yeah.
You know which
I mean,
play
there
I'm
was a-
talking about, right?
there was a lot of-
there was a
there was a
few
lot
of
of,
those cases because,
there was a
but you know
few,
why
like-
they were doing that? Probably because they
They're
knew
compensating for the turf.
because they
Yeah,
physically couldn't
totally.
get there otherwise.
They're getting, yeah. So I mean, it makes them look bad, but they have no choice. I think the offensive linemen they can eat, and it also affects.
Do you know what?
fourth
I'm
down.
surprised.
So the Eagles are able to get because the offensive linemen are going forward. Defense, if you look, they're trying to submarine underneath.
hmm
Okay, but when you can't generate any drive through your legs, like essentially what should happen is the defensive line will submarine underneath and it will collapse the offensive line. But notice how our offensive line was just exploding forward, right, and getting over the top, and it just like it was like a tidal wave, you know. So the O-line for what, because they're on all fours, they already have their hands on the ground. Not all of the defensive linemen are used to a 3-point, 4-point stance. That's an interior D lineman technique.
hmm
But when if the turf was good, they could generate some kind of drive from a 2-point stance, you know, but they can't do that. They're having to start on all fours and the turf's bad. So
Now,
it's not a
what-
surprise their
what I
D line
will
lost
say-
every encounter.
What I will say, this is nothing to do. This is not part of the debate of turf, natural grass versus field turf. I don't think that should be part because we know that field turf is significantly worse
Mhm.
for injuries. It's not a natural versus non-natural grass conversation. This is when you get it, you've got to get it right.
It's a Super Bowl.
It's the pinnacle.
You can't be asked to spend money. It doesn't matter if it's 5 million. You get the turf right. It's the Super Bowl.
That game.
They're worried about how much was it, Dilly? 300,000?
No, it was 800 grand, right?
800,000.
They need to speak to whoever at Twickenham, like,
They'll sort it out.
because they managed to deal with 30 men being on a field, and the field is not cutting up like ridiculous,
Yeah,
and it's
rolling, malls everywhere, rucks happening constantly, and they still manage to get it done. Hey, if I work for Twickenham, I'm perhaps calling the NFL being like, hey, I can give you a good contract. I'll take care of all of this. It'll be easy. I'll do it in all your stadiums. Just pay me and my van, family business. We'll come over, we'll sort it out for you. And they'll get it done right.
And the thing is, yeah, it's a downer because it should be another thing that we're talking about in such a pinnacle game. All right, moving
Yeah,
on.
it's the Super Bowl.
Final question about this game. Can the Eagles bounce back immediately next year? They've got a lot of free agents.
Yep, a lot of free agents. Some guys were only in it for this last, like I think guys like Sue, I don't believe they'll be back. But we'll have some pieces because I think a lot of guys left things unanswered. You know how I was saying Miles Sanders is not going to be there?
I don't
You guys
think he's going to
believe
be
me now?
there.
Do you think they're going to sign him to a big deal? Like
No.
Gainwell was
No,
playing
because-
great. Even Gainwell is
listen.
undersized, but we took that guy from Ohio State, remember? Trey Sermon.
You go from Ohio's Trey Sermon. Yeah, you go Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon. Yeah.
You
He's
do
gonna
have
have to
Trey
sit back.
Sermon.
Yeah, former 49er, I believe. So he didn't really
Okay,
play a
so
lot this season, but I reckon he's gonna be the
well,
thumper
you,
next year.
yeah, you. I mean, you were stashing him to use him for next year after the Niners got rid of him after they got CMC. But here's the thing, though, like you need to change your mind. Running backs are people too, okay? You guys need to stop treating them. You know, I know they don't have significant value, but they're NFL pros. They deserve to get some sort of money. Yes, you guys will not resign Miles Sanders, but someone's going to give him a bit of money to come be their running back. And I still think like can
It's
be
going to
a
be
good
interesting
back in
to
the
see where he
NFL.
ends up.
Where was
He's going to
Pacheco
be a good
drafted?
back in the
Seventh round.
seventh round.
What's going to happen to Edwards-Helaire?
I don't
What do you
know,
think's
but
gonna happen?
He's not
Pacheco's
being
starting running
re-signed.
back.
He's not being re-signed after this
Exactly.
rookie deal.
Like this is the
His
thing.
fifth
Like
year
I
option's
love
not getting picked
running
up.
backs. I love running backs, and it seems to me like if you want to come into this league and be a back, you've got to do more than just purely run the ball. You know,
No, but
you've got
okay,
to be able
so
to be 3-dimensional.
no,
I
but
think
hold
some of
on a
these guys can
second
do it.
though. Like, no, but you need to understand. For every CMC and Saquon and those type of guys, it's the same thing with the quarterback position. Not every quarterback coming to the NFL can be special. Not every
Yep.
running back can be special. So you
Yeah,
find
but I
one
think
that
that's
can
what
fit
it
your
is.
scheme and do the
The
running.
special ones, you hold on to them, right? The non-special ones, they're all interchangeable. That's how they view it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
they are.
like
But at the same time, what I'm saying is that you can't keep saying that I'm gonna keep drafting a running back every single year because eventually,
They
if I'm
draft
an
every 4
agent,
years.
yeah, I
Aaron
know. If
Jones,
I'm a,
great back.
no, but you
Pay
different.
him.
They paid
Kamara.
him though, didn't they?
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying.
What?
There's that line.
No, but it depends. But hold on, Aaron Jones, I wouldn't put him in the same category as CMC, but he got
Correct.
paid
Of course.
because he's a key part of that system. The way he ran the football, the way he contributed to them winning games, made him a key part of the system. That's why they paid him. So if you're running back, you just got to hope that you're assigned to a good team with a good system. Like Derrick Henry, for instance, he can catch, but primarily he's not a dual threat like that CMC is. But eventually, they had to pay him because he became a key part of their offense through what he does in the running game. So either you have your dual threat special like Saquon CMC, or you take the Ken Henry route whereby you run the football, but you're so good at it is a critical part of the offensive scheme or the offensive system.
Mhm.
Now, pertaining to the question, Eagles, they can find a way back because I believe in Howie. I think you have probably arguably the best GM in the NFL right now. And he's very good at building your roster. I'm sure in the trenches, you guys are going to be fine. Yes, the older veterans are going to move on. Jordan Davis is going to have a more starting role next year in your defensive line. And I think he's going to retool the team, and you guys have a great shot to get back. Now, the biggest key is that next year, for me, I think you guys can get back to the Super Bowl, but it all depends on how we retools your roster because you got the core pieces there, and also the expected changes to your coaching staff might play a role in you guys coming back as well.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I think as long as we keep certain core, I think our secondary, Chauncey Gardner, I think we want to keep him. Bradbury's back, Slay's back. You got to get those guys back there. Defensive line, like I said, we can afford to lose people. I think Jordan Davis, I think, is going to step up. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Kelsey. He doesn't really have anything left to prove. He's been mulling over retirements for several seasons now. It's almost year by year.
I don't know whether he wants to go out on a loss like that. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, they played well. This is a bad loss.
Just losing.
He is a Super Bowl champion. He's a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, so
already.
it's going to be interesting to see whether, if that happens, well, we talked about it the other day. That's 3 first ballot Hall of Famers in
right there.
in 5 years' time.
Yeah, he has nothing to prove, but we've got Cam Jurgens, who's had time to sit underneath him and learn from one of the best to ever do it at his position. Yep, so Cam Jurgens, I think, will be fine.
Yeah, and you guys are good at developing them. Also, one thing I got to say is, from the Super Bowl and some of the play this season from your defense, right, it's clear that on the back end, you guys, like, when I look at difference makers to teams in terms of, like, winning Super Bowls and stuff, right? Most teams sometimes have almost like a star at each level, right? So the Rams, they had, especially at least at two critical levels. So you gotta have like an all-pro type at defensive line and your defensive backfield, whether a corner or a safety. And I can't help but think, could your Eagles have used a Derwin James clone in the Super Bowl? Because I went back and I checked.
Yeah.
Hold on. I went back and I checked when the Chiefs played the Chargers, right? In the first game, Kelce went off for over 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. That was the game that Derwin James didn't play. When they played the reverse fixture that Derwin James played, guess how many catches and yards Travis Kelce had? The Chiefs won, but guess how many yards and how many catches and yards was his name?
He only had
Travis
3 catches
got.
in this game, didn't he? They got him going
In the
at the
reverse
start,
fixture.
and then they didn't get him going after then.
Yeah, but it's because they had those huge breaks and stuff like the running
Everything
game
in the
was
flat
working,
was
so-
free, so therefore they didn't.
Exactly.
Nothing
So
mattered.
therefore, they didn't need to go to the middle that much. But in a reverse fixture, Kelce had 5 catches, 51 yards, and Derwin James played. So it showed that he had a huge influence on keeping Kelce a bit quiet in the reverse fixture of that game. So you guys have a great roster as it is, but if going into the draft you can find that type
we've
of
got
player,
we have got I believe we've got a top 10 draft pick, so we could
so find
it's one of the first
somebody
better
that can
chances.
play the Derwin James type of role. There's a safety. I'll give you his name now.
Is he a bulldog?
Let me. No, he's not a bulldog.
Wolverine.
Yeah, you got the 10th pick.
Every bulldog will be gone.
Everybody wants. I just need to find his name. Brian Branch.
Brian Branch.
Watch his footage. He's
All right.
tipped to be a top 10 pick. He's a safety. He's kind of like a Derwin James type. Have a look at him.
And also, the Chicago Bears are officially on the clock. Now, question. There was going to be a question that was going to go through my head. Now, we have... so Carr. We've got 24 hours. We've got less than 24 hours now until we know whether Derek Carr's clause in his contract gets activated. Do we
What's
think
the money if it gets activated?
40 million guaranteed or something like that? Or
If
45
money's getting
million?
cut.
They've got to do it. Because they're not getting a trade for him.
Well, yeah, he's getting cut, and I think he wants to get cut because he came out and said, "I'm not going to the Saints, and I'm not going to any other team. So you guys just gonna have to cut me." And I think it's the best move for him because then you can choose.
He can choose he can choose the team that he wants to go to.
Choose the team you want to go to.
Yeah. All
I hope
right.
he chooses the Jets.
I think that would be an
for
interesting.
the Commanders, though.
The Commanders could be a good one as well.
I'd rather take the Jets if I were him.
All right. Now, last 2 things. The brain drain of the Eagles is going to happen. So it's between Callahan or the Bengals and Gannon or the Cardinals position.
No, it's actually not Callahan. Lou Amiran of DC.
Yep. Sorry. Yeah, it was DC and DC, correct? So they're going with you're going with the defensive coach.
Yeah. I think so apparently it comes down to those final 2. If we don't find out tonight, probably find out tomorrow morning.
So we're going to find out very soon.
Sometime tomorrow.
Do you care either way?
I think the reports.
Or do you prefer Lou?
I mean, either one. Either one sounds like a great guy. And I think the search that what I'm pleased about is that I was reading the reports today that the search for the Cardinals and why it's taking longer is that because they're not looking for like a schematic head coach. You're looking for someone that can be a leader, command the room, and bring accountability.
Yeah.
So we're looking for someone to be the head coach.
I think
and then
that
the
probably
schematic stuff, he decides how he
makes
wants
me
the
think it
schemes
might
to
be
run
Lou.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it might be Lou, but Gannon apparently has also impressed
in the interview
Austin
stage.
in the past. No, actually in the past, because they worked together on the Viking stuff
Right, okay.
years back. And he had traits that Austin thought was kind of like the it factor type in terms of becoming a head coach. And
Okay.
and I think the report was that our new GM had a list of 10 to 12 candidates that he already had in his back pocket should he become a GM that he would like to interview and sort of like whittle down to see who he wants to select as his head coach. So either one, my personal preference, I prefer Lou because he's more like a veteran NFL DC. And I think I like his experience better. But if we go with Gannon, I have no issues with
but
it.
you've like the process has been good, so it's a positive either way from yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And then Shane Steichen is expected to become the coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, that's the report.
And if that happens, he knows how to work with young QBs. And what are the Colts likely to have as a young QB in the draft? So, positives.
Absolutely.
Have you guys got your GM?
Yeah, we've still got Chris Ballard. So
Chris Ballard,
still got Chris Ballard as the GM. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Quick question. Well, I think so. Say if Gannon and Shane Steichen goes,
are they going to promote or they're going to bring from outside? That's what we're probably going to ask.
We might bring. From the same
but also,
tree.
My question. 1 second. My question was, so it's reported that both guys are gonna go into your assistants and pitch them to be sort of like their coordinator. So it's kind of like not just coordinators, it's losing some assistants too. Because if I'm a QB coach, I'll take the opportunity to become an OC because that's a natural progression. So it's a twofold question, like where do the Eagles go from there? Because that would be a huge hit though, for your coaching stuff.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, I think this system is still going to stand because I think there's certain hallmarks of it. Like they might have slightly different philosophies, but it's that same Andy Reid, Doug Peterson style of thinking. You know what I mean? So it's all stemmed from that. Defense. Here's the thing with Gannon. People were calling for his job last year. People will call him for his job, but it's not because he's bad. Like he's a really good coordinator, and I actually think if he goes to your Cardinals, Pete, I think it's probably better because that means you can get the right offensive coordinator there. You can get the right guy. That's a perfect match. Because sometimes if you pick like an OC, you have to try and force him into that hole. You know what I mean? But because your defense is taken care of, you can get the right guy. But
he's not going to be calling plays on defense. Generally, you don't want your head coach to be calling plays.
You don't want your head coach, but he can.
Nowadays,
usually
they make final decisions, but they don't call the individual
in that
plays,
first
right?
year. In that first year, they don't want to mess around, especially if they're on the hot seat. They don't want to put their future in someone else's hands. If the shit
but once
goes
they've
down,
gotten that cachet, then they carry on.
Once they've gotten that cachet, then yeah. But that first year, he's going to be calling the plays on defense. I think.
No, actually, I don't think Gannon will call plays on defense because I heard something that what do you call it? On your Eagles stuff, one of your assistants is being
touted to go with him.
Sean McVay of defense. And he's gonna take him as his DC.
I'm just thinking who we have internally that we can.
That could be a real brain. That could be a real brain drain.
Yeah, Deuce
and that could be
he might come
kind of like a hit.
Deuce Staley right now. Hold on. Is he Detroit still? He might come back. He's with the Eagles, football, former player, and assistant head coach and running backs coach. Oh, he's with the Panthers, so he's probably gonna. You wouldn't mind.
Had you just signed with the Panthers for Frank Wright? No.
Oh, so Frank Wright took him.
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you can't even get him.
Okay. Deuce Staley,
I found his name. His name is Nick Rallis. He's very young, and he's one of those people that, you know how McVay got his reputation from offense and actually delivered for the Rams when he came in? He's got the same reputation for like on the defensive side of the ball, Nick Rallis.
29 years of age. Yeah.
He's credited to be the key to how your linebackers were amazing this year in the regular season, in terms of how well they played. So he's someone
Considering
that Gannon
I
could
can
take
believe
with him.
that. I can believe that because Kaiser White and those guys weren't really all that a year to 2 years ago. They almost came out of nowhere, which means he can coach linebackers really well. And they're obviously the heart of that defense as far as overseeing a bit of everything. So if he can get that out of middle of the road future journeyman guys, then once he gets his hand on like Isaiah Simmons with this guy, like he was able to get that out of Kaiser White, who was a lot of people were like, this guy is just going to be a journeyman. He was able to get, if he gets his hands on Simmons, he could change it. He's going to put him at linebacker. He's not going to have any of this safety hybrid stuff. No. He's going to put him at linebacker. You'll really see things happening.
No, but like I said, I mean, personally, right now, because we can, if we can get Gannon and this guy, I'm leaning towards Gannon because Gannon is 40, a bit younger, so there's a long-term duration. Lou Anammara is veteran; he's 56. So always that's for me. That this is my opinion. Whenever you hire a veteran head coach around late 50s, you always got to think about how long are they gonna come and coach your franchise for? Because sometimes they could be coaching for maximum maybe 10 years and they're thinking about retirement.
To be honest, 10 years is a good enough stint out of a head coach.
They last that long.
It is. No, hear me out. It is, right? But ideally, I would love, for me, right? I would love us to go through a period where we're not even thinking about changing the head coach for a lot. Like the Steelers are putting Mike Tomlin, and he's been there for 14 seasons, and he's still going. I would like that type of situation whereby I know my head coach is a leader of men. He's always going to keep the organization stable. We don't have to go through coaches for 10 plus and have a long years.
Let me put it this way. How many coaches in the NFL do you think have a tenure of 10 years or more currently?
Very few.
Very few, maybe 3.
No, it's 5.
5, yeah.
Belichick, Tomlin, Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid.
Yeah, but that's from consistency. You know, they're always.
Well, Belichick is from consistency for a long time.
The next
Harbaugh and Tomlin the same thing because they came in very young coaches, and they've also done very good impressively.
The next three are Sean McDermott, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Now, if Kyle Shanahan doesn't, is probably the one that's he will stay, but I would say out of those 3, he's the most likely that could get fired because if they continually, if they have stability at the quarterback position and they don't manage to make it to the big game, he might eventually go.
Nah, it's not getting any better, mate. Like, do you know how hard it is to find coaches?
I know.
Anyone that gets rid of Kyle Shanahan, like he puts you in the position, like you get so many cracks. As long as you're getting to that dance.
He got to the dance. But I think what it was is,
in the dance.
Say for example,
don't be Detroit,
they have a season where they started the season, right? They had the start of the season, correct?
Yeah.
And everyone was writing the 49ers off. Say for example, they continue to be bad. Yeah, and the injury situation wasn't there. Like with next season, the injury they have. Let's say they lay an egg next season.
You need maybe 2 of those. You need 2 of those in a bad spot the following year.
I don't think they do. Do you know why I say that? Because Shanahan now has done it 2 seasons in a row, right? Yeah. Whereby he's been able to get to that next level of coaching, which is how do I win in spite of injuries, in spite of not having the best quarterback out there? And he's been able to do that. And I believe his talent as a coach. It takes a very, very special coach to be able to get to that level and win with so many injuries. Like you were saying it yourself, Dylan, in one of our podcasts, that his snake betting at the QB position is ridiculous. It's like almost every quarterback that he gets in a season, he has like 3 gets injured. And it's like, it leaves the question.
He's cursed.
How good will he be if he was to have a quarterback that was durable for a whole year?
No. It's not the quarterback's issue. It's not the quarterback's problem. Can you imagine if he went somewhere else and the quarterbacks carried on getting injured?
So you think it's him? Because to me,
It's a curse. It's a curse. It's a
Maybe, I mean, that's one way of looking at it, but I reckon he's going to be in that job for a long time.
there's a tongue is firmly in cheek. Don't take this seriously. All right, there we have it. Super Bowl review show in the books. We are going to be here throughout the off season. We're going to talk about everything that's going on. We're going to keep talking to everyone. So, if you want to catch the live streams are on Twitch. All shows available to be watched on YouTube 24 hours later. And until next time, we'll catch everybody then. So it's goodbye from myself, goodbye from Will, goodbye from Peter, and we'll see everybody on the flip side.